Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 33 here at the Tavern, presented by HeroTaku.com. Well guys, for the next few solo videos that I'll be doing, and don't worry, I'll get some more videos in between with Raptor, I'm going to go ahead and talk about specific Power Rangers and Sentai Rangers. So I'm not going to go ahead and focus on a whole team of Rangers like I did with the Dark Rangers, but I want to go ahead and bring up a few examples about certain Rangers throughout Power Rangers and Sentai, about their concept, creation, and execution. So today, I want to go ahead and start out with Gosei Green from Goseiger. Now, many of you are probably wondering, who is Gosei Green? And that's a fair question, because this character only appeared in one episode of the series, and a brief flashback within another one later on. So basically, he is Hyde, Gosei Blue's partner from the Cedic tribe. If you recall, the first episode established that all three tribes, Landic, Skydic, and Cedic, sent members to Earth to do whatever it is they were doing, and of course they were trapped on the other side. The unusual thing about this was that Hyde, Gosei Blue again, did not have a partner. Black and yellow were partners from Landic, red and pink were partners from Skydic, but Hyde seemed to be all by himself. And we didn't understand why. Then in episode 10, we get a revelation to his backstory that prior to the events of episode 1, he and Magus, I believe, I don't know how you pronounce that, were partners, and Magus was Gosei Green. But Gosei Green was killed by a monster. And this is all told in flashback for the benefit of Gosei Blue's character. Basically, if I recall the episode correctly, it's been a few months since I'd seen it, is that Gosei Blue had a hard time working with the other Rangers, trusting them, and so forth, and it had to do with the fact that he felt responsible for Gosei Green's death, which is all understandable. But this is the only time this Ranger appears throughout the entire series, and we really don't know anything about him. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this character from both a behind-the-scenes perspective, an in-story perspective, and in relation to Power Rangers, and I'll get to that when we get to that. First, let's go ahead and talk about the production of Goseiger. Now, let me point out that, as I've stated previous times before, I don't speak Japanese, nor do I read it or have access to a lot of Japanese material. So most of the stuff I'll be going on is what I've been able to find online, primarily from Ranger Wiki, Ranger Board, and a few other sources out there. But let's consider something about Goseiger as a whole. Let's look at the title. It is Goseiger. And Gosei, for lack of a very good translation, typically means 5 of something. And as Raptor has pointed out, the idea in Goseiger is it means 5 stars or 5 star rangers, something of that regard. But it comes down to the fact that Gosei means 5 of something. So off the bat, we know that there is only going to be 5 rangers in this series. Let's also point out that Gosei Knight does not count as a ranger. Once we get to Gokaiger, he is considered a Bangi hero, an extra hero within the series. He's not part of the main Goseigers, and of course his origin is completely different from the Goseigers. So not including Gosei Knight as an ally here, there are only meant to be 5 rangers. So we shouldn't expect a 6th ranger to show up, and yet we did have a 6th ranger that was pretty much there to begin with, then was killed off. And I don't know why this is from story's standpoint. Based on the behind-the-scenes information I've been able to obtain is that they did indeed originally create a Gosei Green costume, but I'm quoting here, it was poorly made and damaged, unquote. Therefore, they couldn't really use a costume within the series. Now, what you guys are seeing on the screen right now is an artist's rendition of what Gosei Green would look like, of course, modeled from Gosei Blue. And the ironic thing is that if you actually see him in the episode, first, we don't see his helmet, which is significant, but the costume in that shot was used, was a Gosei Blue costume that was color corrected to look green. So they really didn't even have a suit to go ahead and use for this, and just had the copy of Gosei Blue. Of another point, he doesn't even have an animal on his helmet or on his jacket. So it seems like the concept was, because I always thought it was like they were hiding this from us, that we couldn't go ahead and see what that animal was, and they would reveal it at a later time. But they didn't design anything like that, it seems, because if there definitely was a costume, they didn't tell us what that animal would be. But I'm getting off the point right here. So again, from a production standpoint, it was never established that there would be 6 Rangers within the series, and they really kind of dropped the ball on making a 6th Ranger in this case. And again, it was only meant for one scene of the series, apparently, and they couldn't even get that right. So that's the behind-the-scene things. Let's take a look at the series itself. Now, first of all, I felt Gosei was one of the weaker Sentais that I've ever seen in context of story. Now again, I've only watched Geki Ranger on up in their entirety, so I'm sure there are probably other Sentai series out there with weaker storylines. But in my opinion, from what I view, Gosei is the weakest since the 30th anniversary. Let me put it that way. That being said, when I saw episode 10 with Gosei Green and his death, my immediate thought was, oh, they're going to bring him back somehow. They're going to bring this character back into the series later, and they're going to go ahead and do something with him. So, 40 more episodes go by, and we never see him again, except, again, I think one brief flashback. Because this character has absolutely nothing to do with the story at all. And I don't know why. Again, the Gosei's leader sent 6 of them, and 5 came back. I would imagine that is a much bigger dilemma to deal with than some of the things that they dealt with in the series. Because, again, the thing we've established in several episodes is a lot of the Rangers wanting to return home. Particularly Gosei Yellow, she wants to return home to her mother and her family. And it's established that these characters do have family. That the Gosei world that they're going back to is populated with people, friends and family, and things of that nature. So how come it's never addressed that the one Gosei Ranger who dies in the process is not mentioned? There's nobody from Gosei World who's trying to contact him and find out that their son is dead, or their husband, or whatever the case may be. It seems that is a very shocking and powerful story to tell, but they don't want to go ahead and tell it. And I don't know why. And we know that it does have an effect on Hyde. It essentially changes his character. But let's also point out that, again, the reason that this character seems to be added was for him to start trusting the others and so forth. But the whole dilemma at the beginning that was established is that the 3 tribes really don't get along. And they had to go ahead and work together to become the Goseigers and stop all the villains. So why are we introducing this plot point of, not trusting because he let somebody down, that he's going to let the others down? It just seems it's almost redundant. Now, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, and feel free to correct me if I am, but it does seem like a redundant storyline there, and I don't know why that was placed in there. Because I don't know why you would introduce this character if you weren't going to bring him back. Now, if it was like a civilian that was killed, then that would actually make a little bit more sense, because then he feels responsible for the people. Sort of like a Superman thing where he has to protect humans. He looks at them as being more important in a way. So if a civilian died, he would be much more protective of the others, basically. He's like, I screwed up and this person died. Which is essentially the same thing with Gosei Green, but making him a ranger brings in all these other story points that are not dealt with. And like I said, with family back on the other side, that's why it's most likely the Gosei Green and not a civilian. Because they never go back to Gosei World until the final episode. So there's nothing to have to be dealt with. The Rangers don't have to deal with that situation. They don't have to deal with that problem. And it's really a contrivance. If you look at it in those terms, the idea they have a character die, but the only person they're contacted by is their leader, and nobody else is contacting them, well, it makes it quite easy for them to get over that death now, doesn't it? That there is no consequence to that death from anybody else. Granted, Hyde has to deal with that consequence when he gets back, because I would assume this is a character that would go see the family, talk to him and say, your son is lost, whatever, and all that. But they don't deal with it within the series, and frankly, that would be much more interesting to see as a story than watching the girls go to the beach. But that's just me. Another story thing that doesn't make any sense is what happens to his powers after he dies. So when we get to Gokaiger, we see that they have the Goseigers and the Gosei keys. But there is no Gosei Green key. Why is that? So he dies, we know that, and nobody has the powers. But it's not like his body disappears or goes to another world or his morpher is destroyed. We see very clearly that he leaves the body, and he was demorphed, of course, but his powers were not shown to be destroyed. His Gosei morpher it seems to still be intact. So does Hyde have those powers? Was it buried with him wherever it was, or did the powers return back to the Gosei world? Not established. And wouldn't it be interesting to have the Gosei powers? I mean, because let's think of it for a second here. We have two Shinken red keys, and they're essentially cheats. Because if you give the guy the Shinken princess key, and you give a girl the Shinken red key, it's the same result. There is no difference in there. So how much better would it be, instead of having the princess, that we could have the Gosei Green come in? And heck, we had people returning from the dead in Rio and Melee. They were there for no reasonable reason, basically. So why couldn't the Gosei Green return from the dead, I'm sure by that second year they would have had a costume fixed and designed. I mean, I'm sure not every costume in Gokaiger was reused. I'm sure they had to remake some of those costumes. Just saying. But why isn't there a key? What happened to the powers? Where are the powers exactly? Again, and if they're in Hyde's possession, then that really paints him as being irresponsible. And let me kind of explain this. You have 5 Rangers and Gosei Knight, and even before Gosei Knight, you just have 5 of you guys, whatever. And you are losing in certain battles, it's getting desperate, and you need the assistance. And you know that you are not getting any assistance from home except in the form of the Zords. And you can only communicate with people. They can't send anybody there. You can't go back or anything. Your best friend has died, yes, but you have his powers. So why don't you use those powers to help you? Give them to somebody that you trust to use. Heck, if they gave it to the little kid at the observatory, I might not like it, but it makes sense within the story to do that. You are low on numbers. There's 5 of you. You're fighting the War Star. You're fighting the Bigfoot monster, and then later Mel Alice, and all these other monsters. And you're completely outnumbered and outgunned in a lot of cases. So why not find somebody to trust, give them the powers, and let them fight alongside you until it ends? So if Hyde really does have these powers, which it seems reasonable he does, it's irresponsible of him not to find a tactical advantage to assist them, to give the powers to somebody to help them win, basically. And heck, he could take the powers for himself and give Gosei Blue powers to somebody else. I mean, it may not be the best thing to go ahead and do in his mind, but it is the logical thing to do, is the tactical thing to go ahead and do. Because the more numbers you have, the more Zords you have, the more firepower you have, the greater numbers you have, the easier it is to win and get back home. Because that is your biggest concern. Yes, the people of Earth are in danger, but your biggest concern is getting back home to your family and defending your world. So why aren't you doing everything possible to make that happen? That's what I don't understand. If the powers were destroyed, I would like some acknowledgement of that. I would like an explanation of how they were destroyed exactly. Or if they were taken back to the Gosei world, then instead of sending, that giant, again, they can't send anything back, but would it be great if they could have sent one person back as the new Gosei Green to help them out? Again, that makes logical sense within the story, but for whatever reason, the series decided not to go there. Another thing about introducing the Sixth Ranger that seems a bit odd to me comes in the form of the Zords. Now, the Zords of Ghost Age really kind of confuse me on a number of occasions. But let me bring up the first point about the Megazord. And this is really what I'm going to go ahead and talk about. So we know they have the headers, each in the shape of their animals. And basically what we see is that they combine with a machine, whether it be a bulldozer or a jet, whatever. They seem to copy it or its design, and then build a body for itself to become a vehicle. So the snakeheader goes to a train, copies the train's design, whatever, and then forms its own Zord out of that to be the snake train thing. Okay? I get that. But then they have to go ahead and form a Megazord, which just so happens to combine all those Zords. Now, there are a lot of contrivances we have to put up with in both Sentai and Power Rangers on how certain Zords would logically go together. I've already done a video about this, about the Gokai Zords, which is the least probable of them all. But in Ghost Ager, the thing is that they have to artificially make bodies based on Earth technology, and somehow are able to form a Megazord. This is the same thing with the weapons. As I just said in the beginning, we have 3 different tribes that don't always get along. So for them to have a Megazord already that combines doesn't make a lot of sense. For them to artificially create Zords is another thing, but then to get them all combined, I don't know how that works exactly. And yes, it is considered magic, I would say, in the series, or at least very, very advanced technology to where it's so advanced we think it's magic. But in any case, they're able to make a Megazord. So, if Gosei Green was alive, and he was summoning his header, and let's say it's, one fan speculation I saw was a squid. So let's say it's a squid, just for the sake of argument here. He would have the squid header connected with like a jet ski, let's just say here. Then does that mean that the Megazord itself would form a completely new combination based on those 6 components? Or would Gosei Green's Zord become a auxiliary mecha, much like the Mystic Runners or the Ostrich Zord, basically? But we see later on in the series that we have different headers that are created, like the Mystic Brothers headers, the four different colored dragon heads. And then we see, of course, the whole thing with the Gosei Knight. And then, the thing is that the headers and the Zords, it's not consistent. Even with Gosei Wonder, because the elephant header connects to the body of the bulldozer without having to copy another bulldozer. It just fits on, doesn't change it, per se. So I'm confused on the point of how they exactly work, but how would it work if Gosei Green was there? Would he get an auxiliary mecha? Would he have his own Megazord? It just doesn't make any sense in regards to how the Zords are formed and how it work with Gosei Green. How would you make it work with Gosei Green? That's like the biggest thing there. I just don't understand. And again, with the weapons, there are 3 different tribes, yet all their weapons are able to form together to make a power blaster by magic. I don't really understand that either. Because again, it's contrivances of the story that they have to be together, they have to have a Megazord. I mean, God forbid we have each Cetic, Landic, and Sky Tribe have their own Megazord. That would actually make a little bit more sense, but since they wanted to sell stuff, they want to have the headers and the cards and whatnot. But that's a completely different argument for another time. So what am I saying overall in story? I'm saying that I think it was a bad idea to introduce Gosei Green. And I only say it because they didn't do anything with him. They had no plans for him. All they needed was somebody to die to make Hyde realize whatever his mistake was or whatever lesson he needed to learn, and it plays nothing into the rest of the series. Again, if you had it as a civilian, it would actually make a lot more sense. But because you have it as a ranger, you bring in these plot elements that could pay off and be potentially good, but you don't use them, and you bring up these holes in logic that makes us reflect on the current team and the current situation. And that's where I am on that. It just doesn't make any sense. They really didn't think this out. And here I am. I'm just doing a straight up podcast after thinking about it for 5 minutes. And I still think that they could have done different things with it. And I think it was just a wasted opportunity. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have a Green Ranger in there? Again, I know they probably only planned for 5, given the title of the series. Because I think even, there was also like a plan to make Gosei Knight give him a human form or give somebody under the armor like he had different backstory, but that didn't even work out either. So whatever was happening, something was happening behind the scenes of Goseiger that maybe they were going to do the Green Ranger, and then the last minute they changed it. Maybe that's why we have the Mystic Brothers, Mystic Runner, which is an ostrich, but that doesn't even make any sense in context because then you have to go ahead and consider that an ostrich is an aquatic creature, which the Cedic tribe is supposed to be based off of, and ostriches are far from aquatic. So, again, could be any number of things there, but I would like an explanation for it. Now I want to go ahead and turn this to an angle for Power Rangers. So, again, we know Super Mega Force is coming. There are only a handful of episodes left into this season. But why doesn't Power Rangers utilize Gosei Green? Okay, I'm really pissed off that the Mystic Runners and Data's Hyper is not going to be in Megaforce. Why it's not in there, I have no clue. Makes no sense. Maybe they thought Ostrich was stupid. I've seen dumber animals that they've used, and I did a whole video about changing one cool animal into a dumber animal. But why couldn't they utilize Gosei Green? Yes, there is no footage of him, but you're telling me that they couldn't make a Green Ranger costume and put him in there in American-only shots? Heck, they did it with the Spirit Rangers, they did it with the Titanium Ranger, so why not go ahead and do it here with the Green Ranger? Because, I know it's 20 episodes they're going to go ahead and do, and then they have to switch to the Gokaiger suits and all that, but heck, that would have been so cool to have another Ranger in there. Maybe add some dynamic character growth, which is something we seem to be lacking in this season. And of course, this also plays my argument that Power Rangers is not meant to sell toys, because if they were trying to sell toys, they would release the Mystic Runner, Deus Hyper, and a Green Ranger into the series. So they're obviously not thinking about toys, but they're not thinking about story either. So I have no idea what they're thinking about in Megaforce at the moment. But yeah, why isn't there a Green Ranger? Why didn't they decide to go ahead and put him into the series? You could have made his Zord the ostrich, made him something completely different, not give him a Zord. Who cares? To have another Ranger would be really cool, and maybe fix a lot of the things that Goseiger could not do. Again, it's only a 20-episode run, so less than half of Goseiger, so maybe it wouldn't have worked out. But I do find it odd that in a series where they create Rangers when there isn't a 6th Ranger in there, or create more Rangers to go ahead and sell toys, or at least that's what they're claiming to do, and then make the Spirit Rangers, which are just empty, soulless shells for the most part, that they didn't pick up on the idea, oh, there was an idea for a Green Ranger? Let's make a Green Ranger. Because, heck, if you're trying to ape the original series like you are doing right now, why not have a Green Ranger? It fits in. Think about it. Because that's the whole thing about Megaforce right now, isn't it? Aping on the original series. They're in high school. Oh, there's a bar and somebody named Ernie owns it, and that's where the teens hang out. And, the Red Ranger's a martial arts expert, and the Blue Ranger's a nerd and all that. So why isn't there an evil Green Ranger? Why did you not bring in Gosei Green, make him evil and work for Vrak or, or Creepox or anything like that? If all you're trying to do is ape on the original series and get to the Super Mega Force, adding a Green Ranger would be great, and you could have him as Gokai Silver, that he's the evil Green Ranger and then reforms and becomes a good Silver Ranger. Yet another parallel to Power Rangers, because Silver, White, that same side of the spectrum, so he could be the good Silver Ranger. Again, I'm just spitballing ideas right here, but again, if your intention is to copy the original series and make it look new when it's not, why not have the Green Ranger in there? Granted, you can't give him an evil Zord, but that doesn't stop you from doing anything else, I guess. So, overall, Gosei Green. It was an interesting idea, a very small idea, let's grant it, but they didn't do anything with it, and I think that's the biggest disappointment. Nobody's doing anything with it. And I don't know why. I mean, we like more Rangers. We can make more stories out of them, get more characters. I don't know. It just seems so confusing to me that neither show is utilizing this character for whatever reason. Now, again, if there's a behind the scenes thing like they couldn't afford another actor, or they had a story arc and the writer quit, or whatever and all that, then yeah, I'd like to hear that. And I'll take back some things I said. But as it stands right now, for what I know, wasted potential, one-off character, nobody seems to care, and I frankly don't know why. So, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Hey, you guys tell me what your thoughts are, what you feel about Gosei Green, what should they have done, things like that. And, be looking out for some more videos. Raptor and I are going to have another one up here shortly. And I plan on doing more videos about single Rangers and concepts. So be looking for those as well. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for listening here tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and the tavern is now closed.